Right, so growing up as a more introverted kind of guy, parties, man. Parties were something that I really struggled with. Like, tell me if we're the same. Tell me if this sounds relatable. But remember, as soon as I got to the party, I've opened the front door and like it's super overstimulating. You know, got the really loud music playing. You're suddenly seeing all these people who you've never met before. You know, they all seem to be having their own conversations. They're all in their own groups. And I'm kind of just walking in there as like a complete stranger. I don't know what to do with myself. Do I go speak to these people? Do I go to the dance floor? Usually my default response is to just go straight to the bar or like wherever all the drinks are, and I'm just drinking as much as possible to feel like comfortable in this environment. But even though I get drunk, that feeling of, you know, being out of my element, it wouldn't really go away. And I'd usually end up just clinging to my friends who are more confident for the entire night, like to the point where I was probably getting annoying for them. Like, I remember they'd be trying to get rid of me because, you know, they're trying to get busy with some girl and I'm like unintentionally cock blocking them. So occasionally I'd get the message and then I'd kind of just be standing on my own in the corner, trying to look busy, like fucking flicking through the settings app on my phone. And, you know, whenever I would muster up that rare bit of confidence to go and speak to someone, you know, maybe someone on their own, it just ends completely tragically. Like I'm trying to talk to them and they just end up getting bored and leaving, or I just don't feel like I'm on the same like level of energy as them. Like maybe they're feeling like really hyped, they're up here and I'm just like down here, like really unenthusiastic and boring. And I'd be looking at the people around me and I'd just be thinking, why does it seem so effortless for everyone else? How are they just able to like talk to everyone and, you know, they're so comfortable in themselves doing things like dancing. And I'm just standing here like some awkward freak. And it sounds cliche, but I just remember wishing that I could be like them. You know, that I could be that fun social guy at the party. You know, that guy he's ultra charismatic. He's going around dapping up everyone. Seems like everyone knows him. Or at the very least, to just be someone who's able to have fun at parties, to just come out of the experience with one new friend. Like that was all I was really asking for. And believe it or not, I actually did get to that point. And it was after I left high school and went to university. And this is going to sound like I'm gassing myself up here, but I'm not. Like, I genuinely was one of the most social people on the whole campus. Like, I completely reinvented myself from the ground up and became like, honestly, like a super connector. In my partying prime, I was literally going out every single night, just throwing every ounce of my energy into upgrading my social life. I'd be hanging out with like a different social circle every single day. And me and my friends would host parties with like 200 people. I'd just be going through my phone, just like inviting every single person in the contacts. People told me on multiple occasions they didn't know how I could just walk up to a person I didn't know and just have a conversation. They'd tell me that they were jealous of my confidence, which was absolutely crazy for me to hear based off where I came from, like being that low confidence kid in high school. This video is the guide that I wish I'd had when I was in high school, like when this was all new to me, when I didn't know how to navigate parties and making friends and girls and all of this. This guide will have you covered. And it's also worth me mentioning that everything you're about to learn in this guide will still work even when you're completely sober. End of the day, I'm not going to tell you not to drink, like do what you want, but I've tested a lot of the advice in this video whilst I was drunk and whilst I was sober. And I actually felt like it worked better when I was sober, like when I was more mentally sharp. So that's just something worth considering. All right, so let's get started. So is there anything that we can actually do before going to this party that will make it easier for us? So I'm someone who, I felt a lot of anxiety at the thought of going to a party, like imagining myself in that environment, surrounded by people that I don't know. And, you know, I'm not naturally a very talkative person. I don't really like the idea of having to spend time around loads of people that I don't know and, you know, potentially some girls there as well. Like it's kind of intimidating. So with that in mind, before I went to the party, whether it's with friends or on my own, you know, I'm pre-drinking. I'm drinking to calm my nerves, to loosen up socially, to get into that kind of more social frame of mind. Like sometimes I was even drinking on my own in my room, which is kind of sad when I think about it. But often by the time I'd arrive at this party, I'd just be a complete mess. Like I've drunk so much that now I'm stumbling around. I'm just making a complete fool of myself. And no one wants to be that guy. Like you don't want to be that guy who like other people are just having to babysit the whole time. You're a burden on your friends. Like don't be that guy, please. And whilst it seemed like the only thing I could do at the time, like drinking until I feel less anxious, I've since realized that there's actually more than one way to loosen up socially, to kind of free yourself of that anxiety before you go to the party. Drinking is not the only way to do that. In fact, it's actually one of the worst ways. And again, I'm not making this a video about like why you shouldn't drink. Like at the end of the day, it's up to you. But at least for me, I always feel like you should never have to rely on something like drinking in order to be social or in order to be your most confident self. Like when I drink, it's to have fun, not because I need it. So that's an important distinction there. But it's kind of like when you see a fat person on one of those scooters, like you don't think that that person actually needs the scooter. You just think, oh, they're lazy. Like their legs probably work fine. But the ironic thing is, the longer that they use that scooter for, the more they actually end up needing it. Like their leg muscles actually get weaker over time, and then they become more reliant on this like external thing. And that's the exact same way we should look at our social skills. Like we should be looking at our social skills like they are a muscle that will get weaker over time the less effort we put in. You know, the more you rely on alcohol to step outside of yourself, to enter that more like social version of yourself, the weaker your natural ability to do that becomes. So instead of doing that, I'm going to tell you what works for me to loosen up socially. So let me ask you this question. If you're about to hit a workout, let's say you're about to do some like massive chest workout, would you hit that workout without warming up before? You know, would you do a couple of lighter sets, or would you just hop straight onto the heaviest weight? In theory, you don't have to do it. You don't have to warm up, but it's probably not going to feel that great. You're probably going to feel kind of stiff. The movement might feel kind of painful. You're at this greater risk of getting injured. And overall, it's probably not going to be that great of a session. So in the same way, why is it your expectation? Why is it the expectation you place upon yourself to be the most social person in the room when you get to that party, to be Mr. Confident, Mr. Charisma, like no one can get enough of you, when before that you might not have even spoken to a single person all day? You haven't even warmed up socially, yet that is your expectation. A lot of people, and you know, I used to be like this as well, they don't even realize that warming up socially is a thing. Like they just don't even know that's a concept. And I think they're so quick to label themselves as shy, or you know, they're just introverted when they fumble a conversation, when they have like an awkward conversation. Like if I've just woken up from a nap and you somehow teleported me into the middle of a party and, you know, asked me to be really social, and actually I'm kind of unfriendly and I don't really feel like talking to anyone, that is not because I'm introverted. That is not because I'm shy. That is just because I've just woken up or I'm not warmed up properly yet. And in the same way, you probably do have situations in the past where you feel more confident than usual. Like when I was on Discord playing games after school with my friends, I'd be a completely different person to that shy kid in class. Like I'd be super loud, I'd be super extroverted, making all these crazy jokes. You know, you're probably not an introvert when you're with your friends. Like it's all dependent on the context and the situation. When we're with our friends, we don't have to warm up because we already trust them. But, you know, when we're in an environment with lots of people who we haven't met before, it's normal to be kind of on your guard, and we have to take a bit more time to kind of warm up to our most social self. So ideally what we need to do is warm up socially before we even arrive at that party, to go through a series of low stakes, low effort interactions to work our way up. So by the time we arrive at this party, you know, we're feeling confident, we're not feeling ultra self-conscious, and the conversations, once we get into them, are just flowing kind of effortlessly. So I'm going to teach you my framework for this, which is designed to take you from, you know, you're feeling antisocial, you haven't spoken to anyone all day, to feeling good and confident and social before you go to that party. And this literally takes 10 minutes and it's free. You haven't got to waste a load of money on alcohol. So you literally have no excuse not to try it at least. So the first thing I like to do, and it's going to sound a little bit weird, but it's to kind of have a fake phone conversation. So I might be in public, or I might have not even left the house before, but I'm pulling out my phone and I'm pretending to be on the line to someone. Really what I'm doing is I'm talking out loud and I'm just describing the week that I've had up to this point. Like kind of just chatting shit, just waffling all over the phone. And what that's doing is sometimes we don't even hear the sound of our own voice all day. Like, that's kind of crazy. Like, we might be about to go into this party when we haven't even like said a word out loud all day. So what this does, even though it seems kind of silly, is it's just kind of grounding you in the present moment. It's getting you used to like the act of talking. And what we'll do next, depending on whether I'm passing through town, I might be walking to this party, is I'll try and get in a small series of micro interactions just to get me used to talking to people that I don't know. So this can be super simple. This can be just walking into the nearest shop, buying a packet of gum and asking the shopkeeper one question. How has your day been so far? Or, had any interesting customers today? Just getting like that first interaction out of the way. It could also be asking someone on the street for directions. Do you know where I can find the Starbucks? Like, I'm not even trying to go there. I'm just making something up, but just getting us into that more social frame of mind where we're comfortable walking up to people we don't know. Like, that's going to be very helpful once we get to this party. And then if we're feeling really brave, we can just go up to a stranger and give them a sincere compliment. Just in passing, only takes 3 seconds. Think of something that you genuinely like about them and give them a compliment. Compliment them on their outfit, their shoes, what they're wearing. Just say, bro, like, just wanted to say, I love your Air Forces or whatever. Just think of something on the spot. And even if they absolutely blank you, on the one hand, it tends to make you feel good if it's a compliment that you genuinely mean, because you're spreading positive energy. And also, it's taking you out of a more selfish mindset where you're only consumed by your own thoughts, whether it's like anxiety or these other things. And you're almost redirecting your focus towards other people, to other people's experience, and ensuring that they're having a good time, that they're feeling good, which is a very important part of charisma. So this will all come in handy once we arrive to the party. And obviously this depends on what you're doing before you go to the party. Like, I remember a bunch of times my friends just picked me up straight from my house, so I wouldn't have had time to go and do all this, like speaking to people on the street. That is absolutely fine. If you can, just start warming up in your bedroom, like do the exercise with a fake phone call or film yourself. Literally just do something. Doing anything is better than nothing. Make sure you're like warming up in some way before you get to the venue. And as soon as we arrive at this party, this is absolutely crucial. This is the most important step, and our brain will try and talk us out of doing this because it is kind of challenging, but this will make a world of difference for the rest of the evening. The first person we see, doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a guy, a girl, whether they look kind of intimidating or whether they're busy, we're going straight up to them, introducing ourselves and fist bumping them. That is all we're doing. Like, this could be a 5-second interaction. It can be as short or as long as you want it. The point is we're taking action. We're not just standing back and letting our friends do the talking. We're not like falling into the background and just being that like weirdo who just stands and watches everyone else. We're getting straight into the middle of it. We're setting a positive tone for the evening. And like I said, you need to try your best to just do it automatically. There is going to be some resistance towards doing it, but think about it this way. The more effort you put in now to warm up, to be social, there's every chance that the rest of the night is going to be even easier. Every interaction gets easier from this point on. We just have to tackle that first interaction. And after we fist bump that first person, we're going to go and find at least 4 more people and do the same thing. Don't put pressure on yourself to turn this into a conversation. It might only be like a 3-second interaction. That's absolutely fine. But at the same time, if it naturally evolves into like a short conversation, this is also very good for warming up purposes. It's still getting us into that flow and building up our level of social comfort. And this is absolutely brilliant because in the first 5-10 minutes of the party, compared to how we felt when we hadn't left the house or even just stepping inside the party, we're already feeling 10 times more social and ready to take on the rest of the evening. Right, so on to the next part. So we've set foot in the party, we've introduced ourselves to a few people that we don't know, started building up some momentum. That is absolutely brilliant. Where do we take it from here? So I feel like at this point in the night, I tend to make quite a big mistake. And I would have walked into the party, I've said hi to a few people I know, but then I'm allowing all that momentum I built up to fade away because I'm telling myself, And you can let me know if this is relatable. I feel like this is quite common with introverted people. I'm telling myself I almost need to take a breather. I need to go and find like a semi-quiet space, like a corner of the party or something, to just chill and almost like process where I'm at. And usually that would be my excuse for just going and finding the drinks table or something. Like I go and get a drink and then I chill in the corner and just drink with my friends until I kind of felt a little bit more comfortable inside this environment. And I've got bad memories of me doing this. Like I remember this one time when me and my friends arrived much earlier to the party than most other people. And the only other people there were just this big group of girls. And we were refusing to talk to them. We were just standing on the other side of the room from all these girls until we'd like drank enough that we could even go and say hello. Like it's fucking cringeworthy, bruv. And what I've realized about these situations is even though it feels easier in the moment to avoid these social situations, to wait for the right moment, wait until you're drunk enough, wait until you're feeling more confident, you're actually making yourself more anxious in the long run by doing this. And you're setting yourself up for having a bad night. The thing is, every time you wait for the right moment, and this is what I'm going to call it because this is what it is. Every time you feel like things need to be perfect before you go and start speaking to people, you're actually training your brain to feel more fear for it the next time. It's going to get harder the longer you leave it. You know, it's this whole next time mentality. Next time I'll be better. Next time things will be different. When actually the longer you leave it, the less likely you are to follow through. It's kind of like snoozing your alarm. Like no one wants to get up the first time their alarm goes off. So they think, oh yeah, I'll just snooze it. And then before they even realize an hour has gone past and they've like snoozed it 10 times. It's not gotten any easier to get out of bed. In fact, it's even gotten harder. And it's the exact same principle with avoiding and delaying social situations until the perfect moment. You know, if you're afraid of being awkward, the ironic thing is the longer you avoid these conversations, the more awkward you will inevitably come across. So my solution to this, and you know, we've already started implementing this in some capacity when we went around fist bumping people, is to instead of allowing ourselves to dip, is just really doing everything we can to act against that fear, to prove to ourselves that we're going to be all right. And I feel like where my perspective on this is a little bit different to other people's is I'm not going to tell you to start going and having more conversations. I'm actually proposing that we aim a little bit higher. I think we need to go even scarier. I remember having this exact realization one day that if I were to do the hardest, most socially challenging thing as soon as I got to the party, wouldn't that make the rest of the evening, the rest of my conversations, like anything else, just seem so much easier by comparison? It's kind of like in a video game where we beat the final boss and then we go and like replay older levels, or we're doing like New Game Plus and we have all of our gear and we're just absolutely smoking all of the lower level bosses. Like it just feels so much easier. And what I'm about to say took a lot of convincing for me. Like it took a lot of self-persuasion to get me to actually go and do this. But the hardest thing for me in a party has always been the dance floor. That's always felt where I felt my most vulnerable, my most awkward and out of place. So what I'm proposing is for you to hit the dance floor almost immediately before you get a drink, before anything else. So I feel like most guys are hearing that and they're like immediately checking out of what I just said. But please stay with me because I feel like I have some pretty good reasons for this. So I would have reacted the exact same way if I'd have heard this advice a couple of years ago. So I would have said to myself, no thanks. Dancing's cringe, dancing's like feminine or whatever. And yeah, most guys would say that. But I think the brutally honest truth is, do you want to be like most guys or do you want to be confident? Because most guys are more than happy to stand on the sidelines, critiquing other people from a distance, making fun of other people like little bitches, making fun of the guys who are actually confident, who are sure of themselves, who are not taking themselves too seriously and just having a fun time on the dance floor and pulling girls whilst they're doing it. I remember this one party when I was at university where it was me and all my guy friends sitting around this table, like there were about 10 of us, And then there was this other big group of girls, and they were all like dancing in the kitchen area. They were all having fun. And I was the only one out of all of my friends to go over and dance with them. I was like the only motherfucker not taking himself so seriously, not unwilling to drop his ego just to go and dance with these girls, to just go and have a laugh. They were probably all thinking the same thing, like, oh, dancing is cringe. And then the girls just all fucking left. Like, they told this to me themselves, like, the guys don't want to dance. They're all just sitting by themselves, so we're not staying. They all just left, and now we're on our own. Like, it's a fucking sausage fest out here because they couldn't drop their ego. If you're someone who thinks dancing is cringe, just ask yourself, if you had the confidence and the self-assuredness where, you know, you could step onto the dance floor and just not care what other people were thinking of you, and you could like dance with girls and pull girls, would you be calling it cringe? Probably not. And as low confidence and introverted as I was when I was younger, I felt like this is a lesson that I learned pretty quickly. Like, don't take yourself too seriously. I can't even dance. I'm honestly not a good dancer whatsoever, but every time I've pulled at a party, it has been on the dance floor, because that is just where the girls frequent. Like, that is just the truth of it. And a lot of guys will also say, and I think this one is fair enough, they're just not confident dancing. No one ever taught them how. You know, I need to learn more moves before I feel comfortable going on the dance floor. And that is a normal thought. But what I would say to this is, the next time you're at a party or the next time you're at the club, observe someone dancing. And I'm not talking about like a girl who's been taking dance classes since she was 10. I'm talking about just another guy. Is he really doing any like crazy dance moves? Does he look like the most technically proficient dancer? Or is he kind of just going with the flow? Because I feel like 9 times out of 10, guys don't really learn individual moves. Like, they haven't put loads of time into honing the craft of dancing. They haven't just Googled how to be a better dancer. But most guys don't really know how to dance. Most guys haven't had formal training. So it'll either go in one of two ways. So some guys will set foot on the dance floor and start feeling really self-aware, really self-conscious. They'll do like some awkward shuffle left and right for like 10 seconds, and then they'll give up. I think this is stupid. I'm uncomfortable. Get me out of it. And what the other group of guys will do, and I'd say that I'd fall into this category of guys because I'm more than aware of the fact that I'm not the most gifted dancer in the world. The difference is I will commit to it nonetheless. You know, I'm not half-hearted with my dancing. I'm not doing the awkward shuffle, then looking around to see if anyone can see my dancing. No matter how like weird and out of pocket my dancing is, I'm committing to it fully. I'm just getting in the zone. I'm trying to have as much fun as possible. I don't care who's watching. It's a bit like when you've got the big jug of ice water and you're trying to pour it into your cup. If you're hesitating a little bit, that water's just going everywhere. Like, it's going all over the tabletop. But if you just firm it, like if you just commit to pouring that water out, you stop hesitating, you might spill a little bit of water, but like it's mostly gonna be fine. Sometimes what I'll do is just dance ironically. Like, it's not even hard to do when half the songs on this playlist are like Nicki Minaj or something. But I'll just dance ironically. I'll make it look like I'm intentionally being a bit over the top or a bit silly, or that my dance moves are bad on purpose, when really they are just unironically bad. But no one honestly cares, bruv. Like, if you're just going out there with a friend, intentionally being a bit silly and over the top, that kind of energy is attractive. People like that think this guy doesn't care too much. Like, how do I describe it? It's just a good kind of energy to project. And honestly, if you're someone who gets quite stiff when you're nervous, like my body tends to get quite tense when I'm feeling the anxiety, dancing is amazing for this, for just like shaking off your limbs and stuff like that and loosening up your body. Really goes a long way. So yeah, bro, just like, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't overthink dancing. It might not feel like second nature to you, but it definitely can be. It's definitely something that you can learn to be more comfortable with. And at worst, it's serving a function. It's tackling that like hardest social challenge that makes everything else seem so much easier by comparison. And if you're that stressed out about not knowing like any good dance moves, it helps to like maybe learn at least one kind of advanced move that you can pull out if you ever get like put in the middle of a dance circle. Like, I followed some tutorial I learned how to moonwalk like MJ, and now that's just my go-to every time I'm in the dance circle. And I just get like mad respect for that move, so it's worth it. Right, so for the next part of the video, I really want to get into the nitty-gritty, practical guidance on how you can talk to people, on how to actually go about navigating conversations at this party, specifically with people that you don't know. Because honestly, that's the reason we're at this party in the first place. Like, you can say it's to have a good time with your friends, but really we want to be making some new friends. We want to get out there, actually socialize, and make a positive impression on people. And I know this is something that this is probably the one thing that causes people the most anxiety when it comes to parties. I always had the desire to be social, even when I was a super reserved and shy person. But, my nerves held me back. I was worried that I'd go up to people and I wouldn't know what to say, that it would be kind of awkward. And also, specifically, I always remember thinking that everyone at parties they all somehow knew each other. Like, I'd see people in groups and I'd think, they're a friend group. They don't really want me, a stranger, to go and start inserting myself into their conversation. They're going to think that's kind of rude. So what I try and do is initiate conversations with other people who look like they're on their own, like me. But the conversations would always feel kind of flat. We kind of get stuck in that small talk phase, kind of awkward. Neither of us really knows what to say. And they just kind of end up fizzling out. I'd end up going and finding my friends again and thinking like, it was a bad idea anyway. I should have just stayed with my friends the whole night. But surely clinging to your friends the whole night is not the most fun way we can spend this party. Like, that is not the reason we're here, just to stick with people we know. And I had this realization. The more I choose to cling to my friends instead of going in search of actual conversation with people that I don't know, something which gets me out of my comfort zone, the more I condition myself to need my friends, to really rely on them in this kind of environment. Because let me clear this up, I'd still meet new people when I was clinging to my friends. Like, other people would come over and chat to my friend group. But almost always what would happen is I'd end up letting one of my friends take the lead in this conversation. Like, I'd never be in like a one-on-one conversation. I'd always have like one of my friends by my side who was probably like the more extroverted one out of the two of us, the more talkative friend. And they'd be leading the conversation and almost taking over, whereas I'm just kind of like standing in the background doing the whole like observer thing that I was telling you about. And every time I allow that to happen, I'm almost conditioning myself to rely on my friends even more, to kind of need them even more in these situations. Like, I can't be social unless they're there with me. I guess it's kind of like in the same way you don't want to hide behind alcohol. You don't want to hide behind your more talkative friends either. Like, you want to give yourself a fair chance of being social. And at the same time, you're not at this party to just stick to one social circle, the guys who you already know. That's kind of depressing. And the second realization is it's probably not that much fun for your friends either. Like, I've been ditched a couple of times by friends at parties for doing this. And I remember taking real offense to it at the time. Like, what, you don't want me around? Like, I thought we were friends. Fuck you then. When really it's kind of happened to me. I've been in their position a few times since then. And you don't want some fucking needy person following you around all night. Like, as much as they probably like you, they don't want that. Like, they could have their own missions for the evening. They want to go and like pull girls. They want to speak to people. And they just want to get away from their like typical social circle. That is very normal at parties. So really that's not something to take offense to. You kind of just have to take it in strides and also follow their example if you can. This is my solution. So I'm actually proposing that you ditch your friends for most of the evening. I don't even think you should spend the majority of this party in the company of your friends. I think you should be going it alone and seeing what new friends you can make. And I get this is going to sound very scary if you are a socially anxious person, but hear me out. I like to set myself a target every single time I go out, not just to parties, to speak to 5 people, have 5 conversations with total strangers, people who I've never met before. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be a boy, it could be a girl, doesn't matter. Also, groups don't count. So if you speak to a bunch of people in a group, that only counts as 1. So I'm not letting you cheat. If you're getting kind of anxious listening to this, I understand, but Think about it from the perspective of where we are so far. So we've warmed up before we've gone to the party. We fist bumped 5 people as soon as we got in. We've spent some time on the dance floor. By this point, we are more than warmed up. Like, we are more than capable of doing this. This should feel like light work by this point in the evening. I remember that like every consecutive conversation gets easier because you're like warming up even more. You're getting even more into that social flow state. And for me, this is the most fun part. Like, I genuinely look forward to this. Every conversation is like opening a random door. I don't know what's going to be behind that door. It might be the best thing ever. It might not be. Not all of them are going to be amazing, and that's absolutely fine. But some people, you'll just click. Like, you will find that common ground so quickly. And this is how I've made friends for life. Like, you never know until you actually go over to that person and engage them in a conversation. The mindset you've got to go into it with is low pressure, high curiosity. So it's low pressure, like no one really cares. Everyone in the room is probably drunk. They're not going to care if you make a mistake. And high curiosity, you just want to learn about people. You have that drive to get to know people. You're inquisitive. And really, bro, it's just, the stakes could not be lower in general. Like, sometimes I think about it, like our ancestors were out here like hunting saber-toothed tigers, like battling to the death every single day. And we're out here like worrying about asking for someone's Instagram too quickly. And trust me, I'm going to get into some actually practical stuff in a minute, but none of it matters if you don't force yourself. If you're not willing to just act against all of that fear, all of those like irrational thoughts, and just force yourself to go up to a stranger or a group, whichever it is. I'm telling you, opportunities are everywhere. And if you don't force yourself, you'll miss out on some things you wouldn't have even realized. So I remember I went to this party 5 years ago, and I'll never live this down. But I did my usual routine of clinging to my friends the whole evening. And I found out a month later that this kid that I'd seen at this party and hadn't spoke to, he had the biggest party of the year at his house, at this like mansion. It was a pool party, and like everyone I knew was there, but I didn't get invited. And this kid at that very same party had been handing out free invites to pretty much anyone who spoke to him. Like, half the people who went to his party didn't even know his name, but he was handing out free invites just to get the numbers up. And I missed out on this party just because I was an antisocial little fucker. Like, don't be like me. Force yourself out there and speak to people. So step 1 is ditch your friends and don't look back until the end of the evening. So step 2 is, how do we actually approach someone and start the conversation? So I've told you that my number 1 fear with this, the number 1 thing holding me back, was believing that everyone here must be in a group. Everyone's got their own friend group. That's all set in stone. They don't want me, an intruder, barging into their conversation when they're in the middle of something. They'll think that's rude. So, I shouldn't bother. I understand that thought, but I want to give you some healthy reassurance. Like, we can't think about this situation, this party, in that super logical way. It's kind of like we're applying the same logic, the same rules to a party as we would in like everyday life. Like, sure, it wouldn't necessarily be normal for a stranger to just approach you on the street and expect to have a conversation with you, but that's normal life. This is at a party. Everyone's drunk, everyone's loose, people are a bit more open to having a good time. So the expectation in an environment like this is for people to be drifting in and out of conversations, is for people who never met before to be like mingling or such and such. If people are only interested in drinking and having conversations within their own friend group, what's stopping them from doing that at home? Like, people are here for a reason. They're open to mingling with people they don't know. And with that in mind, I'm at a party. I don't really need permission to go over and start speaking to each other. That doesn't mean I'm rude. I'm just allowed to follow where the energy is. Like, that is what this space and environment is for. So if we're going over to a group, what would that look like? How would we actually start this conversation? And the reason I took a bit of time just then to explain the mindset behind it, explain that, you don't have to obtain permission to go and speak to people you don't know. That's silly. The reason I did that was because if you're able to internalize that energy, if you're able to walk over to this group with confidence and act like you belong, like act like you're supposed to be there, then it doesn't really matter what you say, how you open this discussion. Most of the time, because I'm no longer scared of interrupting people, I just go the super direct route. Like for me, just walking over at whatever point their conversation is in and introducing myself, dapping all of them up, that's undefeated. Like I said, at parties, most people are open to getting to know new people as long as they're coming over with the right kind of energy. And you'll already have that because you've spent so much time warming up. So you'll be absolutely fine. And shortly, I am going to talk about what we actually say after that, how we keep the conversation going. But I think it's just important for you to know that once you've done this, once you've made the actual approach and introduced yourself, you've already done most of the work. That is easily the most challenging part. And most people don't even bother. Most people do just stick to their groups and don't attempt to mingle. They just kind of like wait for other people to come to them. But if you can be the guy who initiates, who actually goes over, you come across as 10 times more confident and charismatic. And again, not gassing myself up, but people did used to say this about me, like, Tom, I don't know how you're so comfortable with just going and speaking to people that you don't know. Like, you make it look so effortless. And it's because I just train myself to instantly go over to people and say hi. Like, it's not rocket science. It just becomes second nature the more you practice. If you want to mix it up a little bit, something which I find equally effective is to go over to someone and give them a genuine, sincere compliment. Actually spend some time thinking about something which you appreciate about them. Usually because you don't know them, it is going to be like something about their appearance, something they're wearing. But that's always a safe bet because people spend a lot of time on their appearance before going to parties, especially girls, bro. Like, if you can be the one to go over and validate their ego, like say, oh, I can tell you spent a lot of time getting ready tonight, like you look really good. Most of the time that goes down extremely well for me. Like, people just love to have their ego stroked. That's always an easy way in. So step 3, how do we keep the conversation going? More specifically, how do we navigate that small talk phase that a lot of us find ourselves in? So I'll start by saying that I used to absolutely hate small talk and I was abysmal at it. Most people are, to be honest, but I did try. Like, I would make some half-hearted attempts at asking some like common questions. You know how it feels like you're kind of going interview mode on someone else. You're trying to give yourself something to work with, but the conversation just never leaves that like surface level discussion. It always kind of ends up fizzling out. And I'd always wonder why that was. Like, what was I doing wrong? But the thing is, most people fundamentally don't understand the purpose that small talk serves. Small talk is necessary, but it's not to remain as small talk. It's not supposed to remain as small talk the whole time. It's supposed to be a way of bridging from that like entry level phase where you're all kind of getting to know each other into that like more deep, interesting topic, or that topic of shared interest that you can really talk about. You know, when you find that topic that you're really interested in, like you're really passionate about, you can just talk about it for like hours at a time. Like you have like an unlimited amount of things to say because you're so passionate. Like, I can talk to you about football for fucking years and years and years. When you find that common ground with someone else, when you find someone who cares about that topic as much as you will just have like the most fun, engaging conversation ever. Like, it will not feel like effort for either of you. That is what small talk can be a gateway to. If you don't go through the small talk phase, you will never reach that point. But honestly, most people are lazy and they'll put no effort in, and the conversation will die before it even gets to that point, before you can even have a hope of talking about something that you're both interested in. So if you want your small talk to stand a chance, you need to keep that in mind. You need to keep in mind that most people are lazy and don't have a clue about small talk. You need to put the effort in. You need to give them something to work with. And I'm going to explain what that means. So right from the start, when you're exchanging those basic questions, like, how do you know the host? Who are your friends here? Like, such and such and such. You need to avoid giving brief answers. The worst kind of answer we can give in this situation is like a yes or no answer, because that kills off any chance of the conversation developing further. What we want to do is we want to give more detail in our answers. We want to think about it like this, like, we almost want to artificially inflate our answers. We want to like add lots of different kinds of details into our conversations, lots of different directions that the other person could take this conversation in. So this is dependent on the situation, but this is kind of the gist of it. So someone could ask me, how do you know the host? And I could say, oh, I know him from school, but we weren't actually friends for that long. Like, I actually kind of hated him when we were younger. We used to get this bus to school together, and he threw an apple at my head. But then, then we had maths class and the teacher made us sit next to each other and we started becoming friends, and, we used to play fucking Call of Duty after school. Sounds like a random example, but that is kind of the gist of it. We've given lots of detail in our answer, but more importantly, there's lots of different directions that they could take the lead on. They could push the conversation in any number of directions from what I just said. It could be talking about their history with the host. It could be talking about like school experiences or like video games or whatever. The point is, we're giving them the freedom to choose what to pursue. We're making it easy for them. Like, we're serving this conversation up on a silver platter. Most people are just waiting for you to go first, for you to make the effort. And when you throw them a line, they'll happily take it. I've explained this concept to people in the past, and they've told me it seems kind of random, or it seems like too much information. Maybe the example I gave was kind of random, but too much information is a good thing. We want to exchange as much as possible information with this person, because that gives us the fastest and best chance of finding that common ground, of finding that topic of mutual interest that we can get into a good conversation about. If you can just be open to like sharing some information about your life, even though it seems like too much information, you're giving yourself a good chance of hitting that topic. And when you've hit that topic, you will know, because like you don't even have to think about all this stuff, like all these frameworks or whatever. You'll just be in the moment. You'll just be flowing, having a good time, and just like talking about something you're genuinely passionate about. And I've also heard some people say things like, I need to take a break because speaking to all these people is running down my social battery. And if you believe in all of that stuff, which I'm not saying I don't believe in it, because I am an introvert, hitting common ground in your conversations is all the more important. Persevering through that small talk phase so you can find that topic of mutual interest, that is what will re-energize your social battery. Because I find that there's two scenarios in which my social battery drains. One is when I'm very self-conscious and it feels like I'm kind of having to force myself to act normal, which is really just a symptom of anxiety. And we've already gone through warming up, we're already in flow. So that shouldn't really be too much of a problem. And the second is when I've been stuck in that small talk phase all night, or, when it feels like I've really been forcing it with people, but not really having any interesting conversation. But if you can make a habit of like making it easy for the other person and just navigating that small talk phase like a pro, you'll likely never have a problem with your social battery all night, because you'll just be stuck in so many fun conversations. It's also worth me saying that not everyone you meet at this party is going to be your best friends. It's fine not to connect with everyone. You can have a perfectly polite conversation, but if your interests don't align, then that's completely fine. Like, one guy's definition of fun is different to mine. He might like talking about like maths, and he's really fascinated by like Greek mathematicians and all these theories and stuff. He might feel comfortable talking about that for hours, but that's not really like my forte. So in that situation, as long as I'm not rude to him, it is perfectly fine for me to excuse myself from that conversation and just move on. So step 4 should feel like the culmination of all your hard work. You've forced yourself to go over and engage with these groups. You've like navigated the small talk phase. Now, if you genuinely have a connection with someone, you don't want to let them get away. Parties are one of the best opportunities out there to grow your network. If you're out here genuinely trying to make friends, or you're trying to get invited to more parties, you can't be letting these opportunities slip through your fingertips, especially if there is rapport between the two of you. So based on everything you've done already, it should be super easy to just slide this into the conversation. You seem cool. Do you have Instagram? I got into a serious habit of doing this, even when it was only like a 5-minute conversation. If I got on well with that person, then I was 100% open to seeing them again. And this is how I grew my network to like such a big number of people that I was hanging out with different friends every single night. If you are at university, you can build that reputation of being like a super connector, someone who's always got something going on a night out, Or if there's a party and we need numbers, like you're the person who kind of fills it up. And step 5, or really just the last section of this video, which really isn't something to be overlooked, is saying goodbye and exiting this party with grace. So often, for whatever reason, maybe I was too drunk or too tired or social battery was absolutely drained, I'd make the mistake, the fatal mistake of leaving without saying anything, of just slipping out the back door, like going unnoticed. And I understand why that'd be like a really tempting thing to do, especially if it feels like the night is winding down or it's not going to get any better. You just want to go home and sleep. But I really think it's worth making the effort to say goodbye to people. And I'm going to tell you why. So first of all, let's think about the impression it's leaving, not just on other people, but on ourselves. So let's think about this. If we've had a really good night, if we've been our most social, confident selves, like we really stepped outside our comfort zone, to just leave without saying anything, to just slip out the back door without even saying goodbye, it kind of feels like we're undermining all of the amazing progress that we made that evening. It kind of feels like uncharacteristic for the kind of person that we've shown we are. Like, we should kind of almost want to live up to that standard. If we're trying to be truly confident, if we're trying to have that unconditional confidence, then opportunities like these are where we prove to ourselves that even when we're not feeling our best, even when we're tired or our social battery is like fully drained, we don't care about that, because even at our worst, we're still aiming to be charismatic and confident. And even if it doesn't feel like the night has entirely gone to plan for you, maybe you didn't achieve everything you wanted, this can still be your way of salvaging it, of like leaving a great impression on everyone. This can be like your grand finale. If you can do one final sweep of the party to go and say goodbye and dap up every single person that you had a conversation with or were introduced to that evening, even when you don't feel like it, that is an absolute power move. Like, everyone will be looking at you as this high status, charismatic guy. Like, people from like elsewhere in the party will be watching you and thinking you're like, oh, he's that guy. He's that guy who everyone knows. Like, he's clearly a high status person. Like, he's been talking to everyone clearly. People will look at you in that way if you can be bothered to make the effort. If you can leave that positive, lasting impression, and it's called a lasting impression for a reason, because this is how people will remember you. If you can do that, then in my opinion, you've pretty much won the whole party. You've won the night. It's all yours. So that just about wraps up this very long video, bro. I put an insane amount of detail into it. Like, this is all of my insights from my partying days packaged into one video. Hopefully it's going to be helpful to you. If you enjoyed, if this helped you in any way, please consider leaving a like so we can spread this video to as many people as possible. And thank you. I hope to see you again sometime soon. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.